Special thanks to these companies for being long-term partners of this channel.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach. Here we talk about overlanding, gear, builds, DIY, all sorts of stuff related to modifying your vehicle for adventuring and getting out there in the outdoors. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about electrical systems. So I'm kind of in the process of overhauling my engine bay configuration, I guess we'll just say. And so my current setup is going to change a bit. And before I just ripped it all out, I kind of wanted to just talk a little bit about it because honestly, I really liked the setup I had. And had I not won an Instagram giveaway where I was sent that ARB compressor, I don't really think I would have changed it. But since I got that, it kind of opened up some doors to where I could change some other things. And so that's why I'm changing the setup. But honestly, I really think this is kind of like the best value setup you can do. You know, it's not absolutely going crazy, decking out your entire engine bay with electrical equipment, but you also have a lot of nice features like the 6-port fuse area, and then you've got your 8 different switches from your Switch Pros. It all mounts up really nicely on this tray. I think it's just an awesome product. So without kind of talking too much more about it, let's jump right into the video. Some of this was filmed at different times, so I'm gonna kind of do a little bit of an unboxing kind of setup of the equipment, and then I'll just show you how it's been in my vehicle, kind of what certain components do, and you know, we'll just kind of talk through it, and I just want to share my experience with it. So let's talk a little bit more about the system.
So just before we start looking at how to install this thing in the vehicle, I just wanted to show what I've done so far. So I bought this really nice aluminum bracket from PowerTrays. So this bracket is specifically designed to hold this fuse box, these 2 bars, and then the Switch Pros unit. And I've gone ahead and mounted up all of these terminals to this particular bar. So each one of these, I think the stud size on these screws is 8. They all have a piece of heat shrink that comes on the loop connector itself. And then I put an additional piece of heat shrink on there just to make sure it was a tight connection and try and insulate it the best that I could. Half of these connections have 2 wires that go into one head loop, and then the other half just have 1. So the ones with there is just a single wire. Those are lower total amperage. These ones, these 4 right here, connections 5 through 8, I have labeled them. These ones are the higher amperage connectors. So if you're going to run any sort of wiring from here, you're going to want to use larger gauge wire than these 4 connections. So these 4 connections are going to probably be best for larger light bars or really large light pods, etc. So if you have a lower amperage application, I would use these first, because you can always use a large amperage connection for lower amperage, but you can't vice versa. So that's basically what I've gotten assembled here so far. The rest of this I'm just going to wait to assemble once we get inside the vehicle. I just wanted to show this setup prior to getting out into the bay of the engine. Also, these 4 wires I taped and set aside from the get-go to make sure I wouldn't cut them. But one of these wires, this black one with this loop, this is a ground. This will just tie into the ground bar that's right here. And then these 3 are triggers. So one is an engine trigger, one I believe is a parking lights trigger, and then another one is just a miscellaneous trigger of your choice. But I just wanted to explain what these 4 wires were in case you were looking at this and wondering, hey, I think you might have missed some wires, that sort of thing. So, all right, now we can actually jump out to the vehicle and start threading wires, mounting, that sort of thing. So basically the kit that I bought from PowerTrays, it comes, you know, one item is just the tray itself. So it's got this plate that's just like CNC'd aluminum, which is really awesome because it probably won't rust ever. But you know, obviously might corrode a little bit, but that's not a huge issue. It's got a little support leg right over here, so it's a pretty sweet panel. And then the second thing I bought was this like accessories panel, so you can I think it comes even with the Blueseas. I'll have to double check on that, but it comes with a bunch of different cables, bus bars, everything that you see on this panel that you can connect with the Switch Pros. So you know, and it also even comes with these braided power cables, and then I got the option where you get these 2 fuses. I think there's one where you can get like isolator circuit breakers instead of some really heavy duty fuses. Like this is a 60, no, this is 100 amp and this is 120 amp. So, you know, you can definitely get some pretty high amp circuits going through this system. And so I just liked it. I think when you look at this, there's 125 amp and then there's 100 amp. The 125 is feeding the Switch Pros because it has 120 amp max output. I don't think it ever draws that kind of current, but just to be safe, that's why I got this one here. And then we've got the 100 amp used for just the Blueseas fuse block. So I'm gonna overexpose some stuff here, but I just wanna show you some of the stuff back here. So all of the plugs for the Switch Pros are on the back of this, and it's covered by all of this extra wire. So I have all this extra wire here because I'm actually running some of these electronics over to that side of the engine bay. And so that's why it's, you know, so busy in here. I wouldn't have this much extra wire otherwise. And then this is where there's 8 switches on the Switch Pros. They all come and they just bolt right there, and then you can back out any of these screws on this side to attach accessories. So I'm currently using all 8 switches, but if you only were using like 3 or 4, you know, you just have like 3 connected and then the rest are just ready to go when you want to expand in the future. So it's a really nice system that's just like, you know, you can basically drop in wires as you add more stuff. It's really clean. And that's kind of how electrical systems are. Like, you just have to put together a system, and then if you're not going to fill it right away, you do a little bit of heavy lifting and spending at the beginning, but then it's, you know, really nice later on down the road when you have to add stuff and it's just super quick and simple. So this Blueseas is a 6 switch Blueseas panel, and lots of people have these, but they're really nice if you want to have power delivered to something all the time, not just triggered when the engine is turned on. So there's 6 different ports, and then there's 6 grounding locations for each circuit. So on this side I've used 3 of them, and then these are their, you know, associated grounds. There's nothing too crazy going on, I just kind of wanted to show that. But here is the battery cable that feeds it from the battery, and then the ground comes off of here and attaches to this long grounding bar, and then this goes back to the negative of the battery. So all the cables here come pre-cut, and they've got this nice tech wrap on them, heat shrinked. They've got the ring connectors, the whole 9 yards. The kit comes from PowerTrays, so it's a really sweet turnkey kit. If you aren't super comfortable with a lot of wiring, but you at least know how to do ring terminals and stuff like that, this kit is really nice. And honestly, I was satisfied with this kit, but I just want to add more stuff. So a lot of current market options use this area for electrical, but we really need to move it elsewhere because this is like the largest space in the engine bay separate to the dual battery spot. And so I just need this space for other things, so I'm having to move it. But honestly, if I wasn't planning on putting anything in this space, this setup has been an absolute dream. It's really convenient, really simple, and it's not incredibly expensive. It will be a little more expensive than, you know, your typical aux beam setup or whatever, but the Switch Pros has a lot of safety features which I think are of value. So a couple different companies make little brackets or mounts for the Switch Pros light system right here. But what I just did is I just pulled this plastic piece. There's a couple clips, like one right here and one on the inside, and all you have to do is just pull on this, it pops out, and then I unplugged, you know, these electronics, and then you can drill a couple holes and just bolt it here. So, you know, you can buy the fancy things, but honestly, like, this looks very clean mounted up the way that it is. Obviously you could go fancier, but I think this works just fine.
So yeah, you probably thought that was a little bit random, a little bit weird. I know it wasn't a perfectly formulated video. It didn't tell necessarily a perfect story, but I figured it was better to just put this content out there in case it would help anyone trying to look for a Switch Pro system than just to decide that it wasn't good enough content and not publish it. So hopefully this video was helpful for some of you. I think that this system is honestly awesome. I love my Switch Pros. My Switch Pros isn't going anywhere, but just how this is configured is going to slightly change in my rig. But Blueseas equipment and Switch Pros, I think they're some of the best in the business. And so I thought that was just a really, you know, valuable system. It wasn't too over the top, but, you know, it did have some luxury. So it struck a nice balance of luxury versus functionality. And yeah, I love that setup, but the new setup is going to be pretty sweet. So stay tuned. Those videos are going to be coming out very soon, and I'm super stoked. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all for supporting the channel. And with that being said, I'll catch you all in the next video.